Hello everybody, it's Stephen here for Bland Designs and welcome to my weekly episode of the Idiot Quilter, episode number 112 for April the 27th, 2021. And let's jump right into things because there's lots of things to talk about today. And one of those things is right behind me. No, this is not a quilt. This is actually fabric. This is 4 yards, just a little under 4 meters of fabric. Now, what's unique about this fabric is that I designed it. I designed it some time ago. As you know, in my other life, I do mixed media and I do art journaling. And this was actually a page out of my art journal book, which I scanned and then created some repeats on it. And then I shipped it off to Spoonflower, which is a site where you can have anything made into fabric. And you can have things made into wallpaper and into wrapping paper, etc. And there's a wide variety of fabrics you can have your own original pattern printed upon. Of course, I have it printed on very good quality quilting cotton. And so this is my own fabric. Now, I did this when I first got into quilting because I thought maybe I'd like to become a fabric designer. Yeah, since then I have learned there's a lot more to fabric designing than just pretty pictures. And I did send off some of my other designs to some of the producers of fabric, and I got, well, either no reply or a very kind rejection, or we'll keep you on file kind of a thing. But now I realize, you know, what's involved in designing fabric, and I don't think it's really my forte. But this was one out of a whole bunch of pages that I actually had produced into fabric that I've used in other quilts in bits and pieces. But this one was one of my favorites. I like the colors in it, I like the design, and so I thought, you know, I should order some more. So I did, and that's one of the beauties of Spoonflower. And if you want to check out Spoonflower, you can buy other people's fabric designs, which is kind of neat. You go to spoonflower.com. Now, is it pricey? Yes, it is a little bit pricey. At least I find it a little bit more than what I usually pay for yardage. I think this works out to about $20 Canadian. A yard, maybe a little bit more than that. However, because it's my own design, they give me 15% off. That's really nice of them, off my own design, yeah. But that's okay, I'll take it. So as I said, I ordered 4 yards of this fabric. Do I have any plans for it? Not really, but what I'm thinking is I'm going to keep my eye open for other fabrics I can use with this, and then I'm going to look for a pattern that I think, or that would show this fabric off. But right now it makes a nice backdrop, doesn't it? And I'm really happy with it. I think it looks really great. It's definitely one of a kind. You're not going to find this anywhere else. And by the way, if you do order this kind of fabric off of Spoonflower, I think you'd have to go under to search for my fabrics. And this is not a plug for you to buy mine, because I know that my stuff is certainly not to everybody's taste. Maybe to nobody's taste except my own. But I get a commission, but I don't know how much that is. I don't think it amounts to much, and I'm not selling it like that, okay? But to find my stuff, I think if you just go in and do a search under Bland Designs, under Collections, or under Designers, I think you will find my fabrics. I'm not absolutely sure, because when I was looking for this, I had a hard time finding it, even though it was my own. But that may have been because I was doing it from my phone instead of my desktop computer, and I found their search engines a little bit lacking, or it was just me. I don't know, one or the other. But anyways, yeah, I'm a fabric designer. Not really. Okay, so what else have I been working on? Well, I'm working on 2 quilts right now at the same time. Yeah, anything to avoid the UFOs, right? Yeah, I'm gonna have some coffee. So, I'm going to show you something here. This quilt is called Pot Puree. This is an Anita Good Design pattern. I've had this for a while. A friend of mine gave me a whole bunch of Anita Good designs that he had. And in that set, I found this one called Pot Puree. And it is a floral block, but it's all done in the hoop in your embroidery machine. And so I've started it, and here's what they're looking like. These are some of the blocks I have done. And I'm using K-facet fabrics all the way around the borders of each block. And if you look at it closely, you can see that the white block in the center is already quilted, because you do that in the embroidery machine. And when it's done, I just have to put the squares together in whatever order I want, and add more batting and a backing. And I don't know how much quilting I'm going to have to do on it. There may be some spots, you know, along the borders that I might want to do something with. And then I have a quilt. Now, this type of quilt, I think, is definitely a decorative quilt. It's not the kind of thing that I think you would really use as a utility quilt. It would stand up in the wash. I'm pretty sure of that. But I think it's more of a decorative piece. So depending on how big this turns out to be, it'll either go on the wall. Yeah, what wall? I'm running out of wall space. Or I'll throw it on top of the other quilts on the guest room bed, and, you know, for all to see. I don't know. We'll see. I just enjoy the process. You know that. I just love making them. And this is something a little different. Now, is this going to take a long time? Yes. I have 11 of those blocks done. There are 21 in the set, which seems like an odd number when I think about it now, because what's that mean? 3 across, 7 down, 7 across, 3 down? I don't know. I'll have to check that out. But each block takes about 45 minutes to stitch out. So, you know, this is not a fast process. So while it's stitching that, I'm working on the Strong and Free quilt by Paul Leger, who's the head of the Canadian Men's Quilters Facebook group that I've belonged to and I've mentioned before. And I bought his pattern some time ago, and he designed it for Quilts of Valor, the Canadian branch of it. And it involves a giant applique of a maple leaf, and I mean big. So on the weekend I tackled that and got the applique cut out, and I've got all my half square triangles that there's 72 of them. Now I've got to work on what they call the stem pieces, because there's a lot of maple leaves in this quilt. Go figure, it's Canadian. I think it's going to be really nice when it's done. I'm a little apprehensive about the applique, but I've done applique before, and this is just on a bigger scale. So I'll just take it slow, and I'm sure I'll be able to manage it. Now, I've got nothing really to show you with this except a box full of half square triangles that look like this, and these are the colors. This one, the lighter one with the words on it, is the background, and then the red. That's all there is. There's only those two fabrics in this whole quilt. And well, I love anything that's got a Canadian theme to it, of course. And so this is one reason why I wanted to do this pattern. So I will show you that. Maybe there'll be a little bit more of that to show you next week. We'll see. Okay, and I've been making some sewing accessories items with my 3D printer. So I made this little guy. He is actually a little owl. I did him in rainbow filament. That's why there's different gradations of color on here. And he's actually originally was designed to be a flower pot because he has a hole in the back of him. I shrunk the size down slightly and I made him into a pincushion. And I think he's really cute and practical and would make a really cute little gift as well. So I always keep this in the back of my mind, what I can create that I can give as gifts. He takes a while to print, but that's okay. And he sits now on my sewing machine, right close to me. So I have pins at my disposal. But I also decided to take several designs in 3D printing, mainly those ones that look like a thimble. And I've shown you the thimble pin cushions, these that I've made before. Well, I made a few more of those in other sizes and some little baskets, and glue gunned them down to a tray that I made in the 3D printer, and I created this. And it's a little sewing caddy. See, I got a little sewing machine here on the corner. So I've got pincushion. I've got things for marking pins. I put my most frequently reached for tools in this. And I even made these little baskets, and they hold little wonder clips in them as well. And this sits right here on my table. But the beauty of this is when I move my sewing equipment out to another location, like my rec room when I'm quilting, I just pick this up and I've got everything that I'm probably going to need right there at my fingertips. So yeah, I'm just combining, as I've said before, my many worlds with my other many worlds. So my 3D printing into my sewing world. So those are the projects that I have done lately. So that takes us to what's new or what's happening. Well, first of all, there is a site, and in another week or two I will review this particular site. It's a fabric store. It's out in British Columbia. I think it's Richmond, British Columbia. And it's called Dinky Doo. Now there's a name you're not going to forget too soon. Dinky Doo Fabrics. And I have checked them out before. I don't think I've ever ordered from them before. I may have. I think I did once, and I can't remember. I must have ordered some fabric or something. And I sort of just forgot about them. Well, they were having a sale. I saw it on Facebook, and they were having a sale on rolls of batting. Now, I usually use the 80/20 batting and wide batting, and they had that on sale if you bought a whole roll. And I think it was really good price. It's 30 yards. It annoys me when Canadian companies put their fabric and batting and things in yards and not in meters, because although, you know, I can switch back and forth between the two to a certain extent, we're Canadian, we use metric. Also, you get 3 inches more if you buy it by the meter. But anyways, they were having this big sale on 30-yard bolt of 108 inches wide batting and the 80/20 Hobbs. So you had to pre-order it. It's not available until June. So I did pre-order it, and the total with the shipping was free because of the amount. And there's tax, of course, here in Canada on that kind of thing. So the total came to about $418. Well, that's not bad. I worked it out, and I worked it out in meters, and it basically came out to about $13 and some odd cents a meter. So that's really good. Now, to be fair to my favorite fabric store here where I live, I checked out what they were charging if I was to buy it, that much of it. And it worked out to a bit more than that. So I'm sorry, I bought this from, you know, another place. That's okay. I'll make it up to my store out here. Believe me, I will definitely make it up. Now, of course, I'm not going to see this until sometime in June. One thing I can say right now about Dinky Doo is they don't move very fast on getting their orders out. Now, that isn't really a criticism, because they do warn you on their website that because of COVID, they're behind in their processing. But something interesting I just discovered this morning when I was checking on my order, I ordered something else from them. I ordered a pattern from them. Actually, they had a special. When I ordered the batting, they gave you a $20 off gift certificate on future purchases. So I used it immediately, and I bought a pattern for an interesting looking bag. I haven't made a bag in a while that I thought I'd like to try. And I believe it's one of those bags by Andy. Excuse me, hiccups. So I keep checking I know the other order, the batting. I'm not expecting it until, you know, late June probably. That's fine because it's a pre-order. But I just ordered this other pattern. I ordered it on the 20th. So yeah, I guess I'm getting a little impatient because I ordered it, when was the 20th? Today is the 20th. Well, I ordered it 2 days ago. Like, come on, get a grip. I ordered it on a Sunday. They don't work on a Sunday, it says on their thing. So yeah, okay, get a grip. I checked their process, and what they tell you is what orders they are, what date of the orders they're at the current time are processing, which I think is kind of good. Okay. And then they'll send me an email to let me know what the tracking is when it's shipped. So today it said they were working on the orders for April 19th, so I don't know if that means they'll be working on the April 20th orders tomorrow. I just have to be patient, that's all. So like I said, it's not a criticism of them. In fact, that's a nice thing that they do. You know, a lot of companies you will deal with online, once you've placed your order, you haven't got a clue when you're going to get it. They don't have tracking or anything like that. And to be honest, one of the things that attracts me to certain online quilt stores is their tracking, because I like to know where my package is going or coming from and when I can expect to get it. So anyways, I have that on order, and I'll show that to you whenever it arrives. What else? Oh yeah, okay, so I follow a Australian lady on YouTube called Lisa Walden, I think it is. I may have that name wrong, sorry if I do. She interviews various artists in the textile community, quilters, fiber arts, things like that. I find them very interesting because I enjoy hearing, you know, the process that other artists go through in their creative journey. And she was interviewing a lady I'd never heard of before called Wen. Let me see, what was her name? Wen Redmond. Okay. And she apparently does some wonderful things with fiber arts and textiles. And she was focusing on a technique that she has developed that I thought was really kind of cool, because it blends fiber art with mixed media. And what she does is she takes a piece of cutaway or tearaway stabilizer, she lays down a very thin layer of light molding paste. Those of you that are into mixed media and art journaling know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a paste, basically, that builds up texture. So she puts down a really thin layer of that on top of the tearaway or cutaway stabilizer. And then she, you know, roughs it up a little bit with various tools and that to add texture to it. And then when that dries, she'll add a layer of color wash or inks or whatever to colorize it. And then she lets that dry, and then she puts a layer of digital grounds. Well, digital grounds are basically a product that allows, when it's dry, you can print on it with your inkjet printer. So she lets that dry, and when she does, then she prints a picture that she has, you know, done some things to in, say, Photoshop or whatever to make it look very interesting, and prints it on this substrate she has created. So what she ends up with is a very interesting effect that has texture. So I thought I would experiment and try something like this. So I am, and I'm still in the process of experimenting with it. So this is my first effort. This was actually a picture that I created through an app that makes pictures into Picasso-like images. And this is actually a picture of me that I did in this Picasso. But I printed on top of this. It's just cutaway stabilizer. And I don't know if you can pick up the texture, but I use some stencils here and whatnot. And so I do have some texture in this. This one is a picture I had of a flower that I got somewhere, and I think you can see the texture in this just a little bit better. But I'm not done with these yet. The next thing is to sew on them. So do some thread painting or whatever on top of that. What she does is she makes them into wall hangings. I don't think she actually makes them into traditional quilts, but they're just interesting pieces of art. And why it appeals to me is because, as I said earlier, I like to try to blend my worlds to see what happens. So it's blending the world of mixed media with fiber arts. I have some other pieces I'm going to work on a little later today that I'm using different types of medium on. I'm using a glass bead type of paste, and I've got a sand-based texture paste as well, because I want to see how these work out. But it's fascinating. I would never have thought that you could actually print on something like molding paste, which also says that well, she uses this as her substrate, I think, because, you know, the cutaway, so that she can sew into it. But for mixed media people, I think you could do the same technique on cardstock as well. The one thing you have to keep in mind, though, is you've got to keep your paste really thin. Don't make your texture too high, or it's not going to run through your printer. You only have so much space to get something through it. So yeah, I'm going to experiment with this more and see how it works out. And in the show notes, I have put a link to her YouTube channel, or to the YouTube that I saw about her, and also to her website where she has a book. She does have a book about this and a DVD. I bought the DVD. It was a download. It's old. It was done in 2012, but it shows you the basic technique. It cost me about $11, I think, Canadian, to download that. And I have ordered from Amazon her book about this as well. The book is a little pricey. It was about $37 Canadian for that, but I'm interested in exploring this a little bit further and see what I can do. I'm always on the edge of getting into doing something that's more art than quilt, but I never quite step over the line when I'm doing things, you know, but I would like to. So maybe this will give me the initial push into that. Okay, so what's that take us to next? Okay, a couple of things I want to demonstrate. Well, one I want to demonstrate, the other one I want to show. First thing, I did show you this earlier. These are these blocks I'm making, but what I'm focusing now on is what they are pinned on. This is a mini design board, and I showed you how I made this in a previous episode, which is just a blank canvas covered with, I used battleizer, I think, on this one. Yeah. So you could do with, you know, flannel, you could do it with batting, whatever, you know, just so you have a little mini design board. But when I was working on these blocks, they weren't sticking so well to this because they're a little heavier. And I was starting to pin them. But of course, what was happening was the pins were coming out right through the other side of the canvas. So I had a couple of old pieces of cork, you know, those cork tiles you can get to stick on things, and I just glue gunned them to the back of the canvas. So now when I put my pins through it, my pins have something to hang on to. Now, mind you, they were a little thin, and so my pins are kind of coming out through the other side, so be careful when you pick it up. But of course, if I'd gotten some bigger, thicker, or used layers of these on the back of this, I wouldn't have that problem. But, you know, being in shutdown, lockdown right now, this stuff isn't that accessible to me, so I used what I had. And it's working fine. So that was the one thing that I want to show you. In a sense, actually, what you could do is make it reversible then. I can flip this around and just pin things to that cork just as if it was a cork board. So, you know, a 2-for-1 kind of a thing, a twofer. Okay, so that takes me to triangulations. And it's how I make when I have to make a lot of half square triangles like I had to do for this quilt and for the mystery quilt, which last week I talked about, and I had to make 100 half square triangles. I will use the paper foundation pieces for doing those. I find that it's a little quicker and it's a little more accurate than doing the standard draw the line, sew 1/4 inch on either side of the line, cut them in half, press them open, trim them down, blah, blah, blah. So I thought you might be interested in seeing how triangulations work. So I'm going to stick that video in here right now. Lately, I've been doing a couple of projects where I have to make a lot of half square triangles, like about 72 to 100 of them. And when I have that many to make, I go to my triangulations. Well, triangulations is sort of like triangles on a roll. It helps you to make very accurate half square triangles in a variety of sizes, and it's basically a paper template. I have a program called Triangulations that I bought from, I believe they're called Bear Paw, and I think they're located in Alaska. You can do a search just for Triangulations and you will find this program. It's actually a CD that you get sent that is a series of PDF files that have every size of half square triangle that you can think of listed. And you print out a sheet like I have right here on ordinary copy paper, and you'll notice there are lines on this. And there are solid lines and dotted lines. So you take your two pieces of fabric, cut them to fit the size of this sheet, which you can alter to whatever size you need. You put the two pieces of fabric right sides together, lay this template on top, pin it down, and take it to your sewing machine and sew along those dotted lines. And if you start where the arrow is pointing and follow it along, you won't get mixed up. It'll be a continuous line that you are sewing all the way around. So it's going to look like this when you get it done. Those are my two pieces of fabric, right sides together, and I've already sewn the stitches here. Don't know if you can see them very well, but if you look on these dotted lines, they are sewn into it. Now, once you have that done, and I suggest you set your sewing length, your stitch length, to less than what you usually use. I set mine at about 1.3 because you're going to have to pull these papers off afterwards, and this perforates the papers very nicely so they come off very cleanly. So once you've got it all sewn down, then you cut on the solid lines and you end up with squares that look like this, and then when you cut them in half, you essentially have your half square triangle. Now, you need to take the paper off of these, and you'll notice too there's a line that I have not yet done right here, but you just clip off those corners as well. So those are your dog ears, so you get rid of those before you even press this. You open these up and just peel off the paper. Then press them like you normally would, and you will end up with your half square triangle, just like what I have here. And this is a 3-inch half square triangle, and it is a perfect 3-inch square triangle. I don't have to cut it down any further. They come out very accurate, and so it's a very fast method for creating half square triangles. So that's called triangulations. So as I said in the video, those that whole system comes on CD-ROM, so you need a CD-ROM for it, and it comes from some place called Bear Paw, which is in Alaska. However, I went to the Bear Paw site and I couldn't find them, so I don't know if they're still selling them or not, but I went on Amazon and they were there, and it runs about $36 or something for the CD. And of course, if you don't have a CD-ROM drive, you might have a problem. I don't know if you can find them somewhere else where you can just download it. I didn't look that far into it, but you know, borrow somebody's computer that has a CD-ROM, and then you can just copy them right over to your hard drive on your computer, and you have them at your fingertips. And they make various sizes, and I think it is an excellent product. So that's why I want to share it with you. Okay, so speaking of sharing, it's that time to show you another quilt by one of my subscribers. And if you want to send me your stuff, you know the drill for that. All the information is in the show notes for this. And this comes from Yvonne McNeil. And I think Yvonne has sent us some stuff before, but that's fine. I don't mind repeats. So I'm going to show you what she has to share with us this week. This week's subscriber quilts that have been submitted are two from Yvonne McNeil, and Yvonne McNeil has submitted some quilts before, which are very lovely. But the first one she has submitted this time around, she says, "Hi Stephen, this is a lap size quilt top made using bounce sheets as foundation. I plan to keep this one for myself as I like the scrappy look." Now, I have never heard of using bounce sheets as foundation. I would be interested, Yvonne, in knowing more about this. So if you could take a moment and send me an email and just let me know how you use bounce sheets as foundation and why. I'm thinking in my head, if you're using paper as a foundation, you can tear that off afterwards. Do the bounce sheets tear off as easy, or what? How's that work? Inquiring minds want to know. So let me know. And her second quilt, she says, let me find it here. Finally finished this block of the month top. Measures approximately 80 by 90. I started about 6 years ago and recently found the blocks in my UFO pile. It is a little wibbly, but that is because my sewing skills have improved over the years, and once it is quilted, it should be okay. You've inspired me to get more UFO projects completed, so thanks very much for that. And I'm one to talk because I have still a pile of UFOs that I need to get done as well. But this is a really nice looking quilt, so thanks for sharing. So as I said, my email address is in the show notes below if you would like to send me something that I can feature on here as well. I'm getting low again. I think I've got one more presentation to go, and then I don't have any. So if you want to see other people's work besides my own, send me stuff. Okay, so what else is in the show notes? Yes, Craft and Chat. It's that time of the year again, or month, whatever. We do Craft and Chat the first Wednesday of every month, and next week, next Wednesday, will be the first Wednesday of May, and that is May the 5th, 2021. So we'll be doing Craft and Chat starting at 1 p.m. in the afternoon and running until about 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that's where we just get together and work on whatever we're working on and talk and have a good time. It's not recorded, as you know. It's just fun. It's sort of a drop-in thing. So feel free to partake in it, and the Zoom link is below. But just remember, I'm posting the Zoom link a week in advance, okay? I think that sometimes confuses people. They don't look carefully enough at the date. And so they're sitting there waiting for the Zoom to start, and it's not the right day. So it's not this coming Wednesday. It's May the 5th, okay? So hope to see you then if you're available. There was a link to the latest edition of So Chatty, and on that one we did talk about the sergers that we own and the cover stitch machine. And actually this was Walter's show this week because Walter uses the serger and the cover stitch a lot. I have a serger, but I don't use it all that much, and he uses it for garment making, both of those machines. And if you don't know what a cover stitch machine is, then you'll want to tune into that, because I didn't know what a cover stitch machine was really either until Walter got one, and I'm still not completely sure. Well, it's of no use to me that I can see, but he's glad he's got one. So he talks about those two machines. Also, you'll find a link to the YouTube that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes in a little bit more detail, called Go Ahead and Make Me. And I have a link to a pattern I'm going to present to you later on as well, and there's the link to the Triangulations on Amazon. And as I said already, Wen Redmond's, why do I have trouble saying her name? I don't know. Wen Redmond's, the YouTube video that I saw about her technique for fiber arts and her website are also in the show notes. So lots there for you to look at. Okay, so let's talk about the YouTube channel of the week, and that's one called Go Ahead and Make Me. Well, you had me at the title of that, I have to say. I was very curious when I came upon this. Now, I think I came upon this particular YouTube channel through another YouTube channel, and it was probably one of the ones where they knit. This is more about sewing. So those of you that are non-knitters, don't be scared away from this. It is run by a gentleman in Australia, one of my favorite countries, next to my own. And his name is Johan, I hope I'm saying it right, Johan van Berkel. And this gentleman does a lot of different sewing projects, but he really focuses a lot on doing stuffed animals. He does a lot of these, and they're very, very cute. And any of you that are into doing stuffies or things like that, you're going to love this guy. He also does hexagons. He does quilts. He has lots of tips and tricks. And you know what I really like about his YouTube channel is he's a relatively new YouTuber. He doesn't have that many videos up yet, but it's growing all the time. And he's learning in the process. And I think this is great because you know my philosophy. My philosophy is I show you my successes and I show you my failures. And the whole point is I learn from my failures and I want to share those stories with you because, you know, we all fail at some point in time. And, you know, I shouldn't even use the word fail. We all have some problems. And that's part of this journey in sewing. And he is part of that journey in a very realistic way. And so I really appreciate that he doesn't just have a great big glitzy production number that, you know, shows everything is perfect all the time. Because that's phony. That's phony. And he is not phony. So I think, you know, you should check out his YouTube channel. It's refreshing, it's informative, it's entertaining. And I wrote to him to let him know because on the weekend when we did our latest Stephen and Walter Live, he was in the chat room, which I was flabbergasted by. You know, that somebody else, another YouTube channel creator, has joined in on mine as well. You know, just, I guess it makes me feel special. But I wrote to him and told him, you know, welcome to the channel, and that, you know, I was going to review his. Ironically, I had this scheduled for this YouTube video to review his YouTube channel. And then he didn't know that. And then there he is on my YouTube channel. So anyways, I wrote to him and let him know about that and everything. And he wrote me a very nice email. And I hope he doesn't mind, but I'm going to share his email with you. And he says, "Hey, Stephen, thanks for your mail and letting me know about your review. I'm so pleased you would even consider reviewing my channel. And I really appreciate the feedback. As you know, feedback is so important. We may think we're doing a good job, but it is always beneficial to hear or read the observations of others." And he's right about that. And I thank you for your comments on my channel as well, because I do respond to many of them. Some there's nothing to respond to because you're just saying nice, kind words, and that's okay. I like that too. But when you ask me a question or something, I try to get back to you the best I can. He says, "I've been watching your videos since around the same time I started making mine, just to see how it's done by people who have established themselves online already. There are so many shows and channels out there, and there's no way I could watch them all, but yours has always been a constant in my viewing habits." Well, flatter me. Thank you. I do appreciate that. "I tend to stick with the ones that are made by strong personalities and who don't fake enthusiasm or alter their personality in any way. I guess the word is authentic, and your channel certainly is that. I like you talk about anything that you think is important, sewing related or not, and I hope I can evolve to that at some point. Thanks again. I'm looking forward to your review. Greetings from Australia." Well, you know, Johan, I really appreciate those very, very kind words. And yes, I do try to be genuine. What you see here is what you would get if you met me in real life. I don't put on a persona. And as I said before, I tell you both my successes and my failures because we can learn from all those things, I think. And that's why I think I am so attracted to Johan's Go Ahead and Make Me YouTube channel, because I think he has the same philosophy as I do. So please check him out. He needs some more subscribers, he needs some more viewers to keep his channel going. So that's one way we can help him out. So thank you, Johan, for your very kind email. Okay, what's that taking us to next? Patterns. Okay, on my vision board, I have this pattern. I have had this pattern sitting around for quite a long time. I saw this, okay, I'll take it out of the bag because the glare is dazzling. Hope that's better. A little bit. It's a very simple looking quilt. This one's made with a jelly roll, and it's a gradient. They use something called Gelato Ombre by Maywood Studio. And at one point in time, I had set aside a jelly roll that was like this, and that was what I was going to make it out of. And then I never got to this, and I used the jelly roll up on something else. So right now, I do not have any fabric. That's an understatement. I have fabric. I don't have a jelly roll that I want to use with this yet. Also, I don't know if I'm actually going to do it in this gradiated color scheme or ombre color scheme. I don't know yet. I saw this actually being made at a retreat I went to a couple of years ago now that was put on by Ultimate Sewing. And when I saw it, like when I first looked at this picture, I mean, yeah, okay, fine. Looks pretty basic. But when I saw it in actual production, I was more interested. So I immediately ordered the pattern. And so that's been sitting on my vision wall for some time for me to get to. So I can't show you the fabric I'm going to use because I don't know what I'm going to use with it yet. But something will grab me somewhere down the road and I'll go, aha, that's the fabric I want to use for that particular pattern. So again, it's called Peaks and Valleys. It's by Needles in a Haystack, and I've given you the link to this pattern in the show notes. Okay, so that takes me now to this week's quilt, which is my critique, and maybe working on a little bit of a theme today about Canadian quilts, because this is another Canadian quilt that features a maple leaf on it. This week I decided to critique a quilt that I made some time ago, and it is a pattern by a lady called Tamara Kate. Tamara Kate does a lot of paper piecing, and this particular quilt was the maple leaf done in sort of rainbow colors. And I really liked the design, but I really hated the pattern. And I'll tell you why I hated the pattern. The pattern was not written from a point of view of someone who's a beginner or intermediate. I'm not even sure if it was written clearly enough for someone who's an expert. I did have a lot of trouble with this particular pattern, but I did manage to finish making up the quilt, as you can see. Now, if we take a closer look at it, the borders that I put on this quilt, I don't believe were part of her quilt design. I don't think her quilt design had any borders. It was really more or less a small throw quilt, or it was maybe meant to be a wall hanging. But I added some borders, and I cut strips from some of the Canadian fabric I already had. But as you can see, I didn't get my borders pieces matched up all that well. If you take a look at my corners, I did get mitered corners, and I'm sorry, I know this picture is very blurry because I was basically blowing up a section from a picture I already had taken. But I did get them, trust me, I did get them fairly square. Now, if you look at the quilting looks very impressive, and it's fairly busy, but it's all in curves and swirls. This was done on my embroidery machine, which is a bit of a struggle, and this was with my old 15,000 Janome, which I no longer own, as you know, but it did come out pretty nicely with that, because there's no way I would ever been able to make such nice looking curves and swirls doing free motion on my own. So overall, I was pleased with the end result, but I have to say this was a very challenging quilt to put together because of the paper piecing, because there were such large sections to paper piece, and also because the instructions, at least in my opinion, were not very clearly written. Maybe if I had a little bit more experience, I would have understood the pattern a little bit better. But that's my quilt for this week. So next week, a different quilt. I promise you, it won't be another maple leaf. I've had a few of those in a row, haven't I? Well, I say I promise you that. Maybe I shouldn't make promises I can't keep. Okay, so that takes us to online fabric stores. Now, I just want to say before I start on this week's that some of these online fabric stores, I go hunting for them all the time. I'm always looking for ones that are Canadian based. I'm also looking for ones that are specifically Ontario, but I haven't always ordered from them. So I'm basing my reviews upon the presentation they give on their YouTube channel. And today's is one of those types of reviews. It's called The Cotton Harvest, and it's located in a place called Seaforth, Ontario. Now, I had to look that one up because I've never heard of Seaforth, and apparently it is north of London, Ontario. Way north. Well, I don't know if it's way north, but it looks like it's probably an hour away, might be less. But I've never been there. That doesn't mean I'm not going to go someday. That might make a nice trip when we can travel again. Who knows when that's going to be? 2030? We'll see. But anyways, that's where it's located, and I looked at their fabric. Now, they do have a very limited selection of fabric, I found, so I don't know for me whether it would be worth the drive to Seaforth, but it might be worth ordering from their online store. They have cherry wood, Kim Dial, and Diamond Textiles. Those seem to be the three brands of fabric they carry. They are interesting fabrics. I have heard of Cherrywood, and Cherrywood I think is an American company, and I believe they have a Facebook group. I think I have watched some of their Facebook live videos that they've had. It's interesting looking fabric. Does it make me want to go and buy it? Not yet, but never say never. They have it all laid out very nicely on their website. The focus seems to be on hand-dyed wool and things like that. So, you know, if you are an embroiderer, hand embroiderer, you might be really interested about this store. Rented lips. You know what I mean. Anyways, the price ranged from about $16 a meter and up, and they do have pre-cuts as well, and you know I'm always looking at pre-cuts. Do they sell machines? No, they do not sell machines. And their notions seem to be specific to embroidery, especially if you're into Sue Spargo. I don't know much about Sue Spargo, but I know Anna on Quilt Roadies is in love with Sue Spargo. She talks about Sue Spargo all the time. So I am assuming that if you are a hand embroiderer, this is someone you would know very well, and they seem to have a lot of her products online. The patterns they have were mostly wool patterns, embroidery patterns. So again, I'm thinking this store is a little bit more focused on embroidery than quilting. They had two brands of thread that I've never heard of before. One was called Voldani, and the other one's called Cosmos. Now, those are both, when I investigated it, those are both embroidery threads, embroidery floss, I guess. So again, if you're into embroidery, you probably have heard about these brands. They do have classes, and they are running them but they're not running them right now during COVID. So they don't seem to have any online classes. They're just in-person classes. They do have wool and quilting kits as well. They did have quilting kits. And they're shipping. Okay. They have free shipping in Canada if your order is over $200 Canadian. Otherwise, it was about $10 to $14 depending on where you lived in Canada. I don't think that's unreasonable. And for the US, well, it was a little bit more, $27 it looked like for shipping to the United States. So that's getting pricey. You want to make a really big order on that. Do they have a physical store? Yes, I already mentioned it. It's in Seaforth, Ontario, north of London, Ontario. So I've not ordered anything from them. And to be honest, I don't know if I will, because they're into, it seems, heavily into hand embroidery. But I might go back and take another look at these brands of fabric that they're carrying and see if there's anything there that really turns my crank. Okay, so that takes us pretty much to the end of this episode. And just check out So Chatty from last week if you're interested in sergers and cover stitch machines. And this week we are going to be featuring the Janome 550E embroidery machine, which is the embroidery machine that Walter and I both use. In fact, right now we're both using his. I'm waiting for mine to come in. And someone asked, and we are happy to do this, would like to see some of Walter's embroidery projects that he has done on the 550E. So we will be featuring those as well. So that'll come out at the end of the week. And that's it for me for now. So thank you for tuning in again. Hope you are well. I hope you're happy. And I hope you stay that way. You know what I mean. And go out and sew something for yourself that makes you feel good. And we'll see you next week. Bye for now.